Okay, so that's the question that I want to try to explore a little bit today. I don't know what Docker is, but I got a comment on one video, I don't know which one it was, but it was some video where someone said that I should just create a Docker container and build the app out. I think that's what they said. And then once I've created everything, I can push that to the AWS server and it should be easier. Now, I don't know what Docker is. So the first step is going to be to check that out, because I do think that it's going to be a way to be a little bit faster with what I'm doing. It seemed like that from the comment, and I've heard Docker a lot. I just never really looked into it, so I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's a really common thing. So I figured there's probably some reason that I've heard Docker a lot. So we'll check it out and see what it is, and maybe I'll be able to actually use it for my app. And maybe that will speed up my workflow, I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest and say that this was quite overwhelming seeing what ChatGPT said had to be done in order to do phone calls. And I don't know, it seems like Docker might be a good thing. From what I understand, now this is like a blind person leading a blind person, but I'm going to try to explain how I understood Docker to work. And then if you know it better, then you can correct me. Or if you don't know, then maybe my explanation will help you get a basic understanding of it. What I understand it as is basically just a. Do I understand it is the question, but I don't really know what it is, but I know that, or I understand it as something where you can it's almost like a virtual machine, I think, but scaled down or like faster, not as complex as a virtual machine, so it's easier to work with. But what it means is that you can do things in there, like you can install packages for Python, let's say, and because it's contained within one of these Docker containers, it means that it will stay there. So then you can upload the Docker container to a server, and everything that you've done on your local computer will then be on the server as well if you upload the container to the server. That's what I understand it as. And why you would want to do this, from what I can figure out, is if you have several different services. I think what ChatGPT said was like microservices, which I understand as being if you have several different things that your app needs to be able to do, and it's not easily managed within something else, then you can basically create Docker servers or Docker containers for each little service that you need to do. So that way you can kind of deploy one thing at a time. So you can first deploy the user authentication in one Docker container, let's say, and then you can deploy the notification system in another Docker container, and then you can deploy which is what I'm doing now, the phone calling. You can deploy that in a separate Docker container. So that's that, which I think seems to make sense. Again, I don't understand it well enough, but I think it would make sense to use that for certain things like communication between users, or maybe storing user data so that we can create our own database, which is pretty simple to do. We can create that in a Docker container and create all the logic that's needed for uploading and adding pictures and all that sort of stuff, and then we can add that to AWS. That seems to make sense, I think. But what really kind of stunned me or got me was that doing phone calls between users seems to be pretty complex. Like, what I thought was basically, well, you need a user here that has a phone and a user here that has a phone, and then they just need to connect to a server up here, so that if both of them can connect to the server, then they can talk. And I think that's basically it, but there's just so many other things, it seems like, connected to this. Like, you need a signaling server, then you need a stun server, and maybe that's it, I don't know. But all of these things need to be separate. Like, you need to create the signaling server. You can't just I don't know what I was thinking before, but I think I was thinking that you could like host the Flutter WebRTC thing on, or maybe I don't know how I thought about it. I think I thought that you could, because I've done apps with APIs before, and I've created a local server for myself and then an API, so I could do API calls, which would For instance, though I did one where I controlled the light bulbs in my apartment via an API and a server that I was hosting on a Raspberry Pi. And I thought it was going to be like something like that, which is pretty simple. But from what it seems here, it doesn't seem like it's that easy. It seems like you need quite a few other things to get this to work. But yeah, there's just a lot of things with this. But I think what shouldn't be underestimated, and what I think I've learned in the past few years, is that right now this seems like Mount Everest. Like reading what all this stuff was, I was like, I understand almost none of it. At least not well enough. Like I can understand it on a basic level, but I don't understand it well enough to actually know what the work that I need to do is. And what's really easy to do at points like that is to just be overwhelmed and think that, okay, I'm not going to be able to solve this, or basically start procrastinating on it, which is a tendency I feel innately in myself, like, or it's a palpable feeling of just wanting to procrastinate on this. But the thing is that I also know that even just doing like 10 minutes of work every single day on this, at some point I will have finished it and I will have done it. It's just, I think what I've been a little bit worried about with this app from the start is that I am naive in not understanding how big of a project this actually is going to be. And so, because I have this voice, or I have this thing where I think like, I have a feeling that if I do finish this app, when I get to the point when it's done, then I will probably look back on this day, or like day one or whatever, and think, had I known how much work this was going to be, I probably wouldn't have dared to start. And that's sort of what I feel like. I feel like that's going to be the end result. The end result is going to be me thinking like, man, I had no idea how difficult this was going to be. And so when I see something like this, and I see how much I do not understand, I'm sort of faced with the fact that this is probably a pretty big project, and it's not as easy as I think it should be or could be. And I'm tempted to ask for help in terms of like saying that this is an open source project or something like that, and maybe getting help from some of you guys with it, which I think would be really good, and I think it would help me. The only thing is that from past experience, since I know that I don't understand this well enough to work with it properly myself, like I need to learn it before I start working with it. And if I get someone to help me with it, then I won't be able to understand what they contribute with. So I won't be able to like verify, is this good or is this bad? And in that way, I feel like the project could slip out of my hands, if that makes sense. Like it could become too complex for my own understanding of it, which means that I will struggle to kind of maintain it or work with it. So in that sense, I feel like it would make sense for me to just try to figure this out on my own. I don't know if ChatGPT maybe makes this seem harder than it is either. As you can tell, my mind is completely all over the place right now, and I just don't really know where to start, to be honest. But maybe I should just trust what old chat is saying. Okay, so I did something I think was pretty smart now. I think what I've done is just a stupid thing where I Googled or I tried to find out like how do I do the voice call thing, and I got some suggestions. But the problem with the suggestions that I got was that they're all paid services. So the one option that you have is build out the whole voice calling system yourself with like sending the voice to a signaling server and then using the stun thing and all of that stuff, which is a lot of work, I think, or I assume at least. Or the other option is to use some already established service and pay a little bit of money for it, and then you can use it. Now, what I did was I realized that, well, Clubhouse, that app that came out in 2020, that was basically voice calling, or that was what it was based on. And I've done this a couple of times, which is where I go to ChatGPT and I ask ChatGPT, here's an app. How was it built? What was the infrastructure and what was the services used, etc. I don't know if it's super reliable, but it seemed like it said, or it did say, I mean, that Clubhouse started out using Agora.io, and I don't know, did Clubhouse use Agora? Technology, recent code decompilation discovered Clubhouse is using Agora technology for audio streaming. The company powering Clubhouse. Okay, so whatever it means, it seems like Clubhouse does have some sort of connection with Agora. And so by using this, I think we can bypass the whole WebRTC thing, and we can instead rely on whatever they've built and what they have. I'm not connected to these guys at all. But what I saw was they have 10,000 minutes every month for free, which I think is a lot for the thing that I'm going to be using it for in my app. I think that 10,000 minutes is a lot. I'm not sure though. If I have 1,000 users, then that's 10 minutes every month, which isn't a lot, but I think it could work. And messaging is free for up to 500 monthly users. So that, I mean, I think this is pretty good. And I'm gonna basically hedge my bet on the fact that, well, they're collaborating with OpenAI, and Clubhouse seems to have used them. So probably good enough. So I think this is going to be the service that we're going to use for this. And that might help us just bypass all the things with needing to create our own signaling server and stun servers or whatever ChatGPT was saying that I needed. So now the question is just, how do you start? Agora. Let's get going. Okay, so they have actually got a full tutorial on how to do this. When I see a tutorial like this, I just feel a little bit safe. I feel like, yeah, I'm probably gonna be able to figure this out. So some days you just need to spend researching things before you dive in. That's the one thing that I've learned, but probably you haven't learned it enough, since I already have spent a little bit of time setting up the voice calling thing using Flutter WebRTC. But yeah, I think this should work. Okay, so I think the only thing that we can do is to just get started on the Agora implementation, and hopefully this won't be too difficult. And then once I've gotten this tested, we should have a phone call system set up for the app, which I figure is like going to be the main part, and it's going to be the most difficult thing to set up. So once we have that, then really, because we already have logins for users, so then really we only need to start doing upload uploading of images, and then I think everything should be pretty good. I feel like I don't make any sense right now. I am very tired, and it's been a long day. It's like 6 p.m. right now. I haven't worked as much as I thought I was going to today, but just because I've been tired. I don't know why. But let's get started. This shouldn't be too difficult. Famous last words, but this tutorial seems to have pretty much all that we need. Okay, so it's 7 p.m. right now, and I'm gonna call it a day. But we did. I'm on my way with this, and I think I'm gonna be able to do it pretty easily. I think it's only that the tutorial that they've created, Agora, the tutorial is outdated. It would seem. 2020 is when they did this, and it seems like it's not really maintained, because if we look at the Git repository, we can see that they have Agora RTC Engine 3 version 3, and if we look at what I have, we can see that I have Agora RTC Engine 6. So that's, there's 3 full versions later. And it seems like they're not quite using the same things anymore. It is 5 years ago at this point. So it makes sense that it's kind of outdated. But that means that I have to go through, I think I have to use this example instead. To be able to create a call of some kind and test a call out. So it means it's a bit more work to it, but it's not that difficult, I don't think. It's just following this instead. And then it should work. But like I said, it's 7 p.m. and I'm going to call it a day and come back tomorrow and hopefully be able to solve this.